يا رب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Inshallah, this evening we will continue with our preparation for Shahr Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. Yesterday evening, last night, we were discussing a couple of preparatory notes regarding the making or establishing a musalla in the house or a corner in the house, a place in the house which is designated specifically for the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's not just in the month of Ramadan, but also we're talking about year round, that this is that special place. And alhamdulillah, it will attract the barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the home and in the health and wealth of the family, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And we also talked about avoiding sins of all kinds, those related to the tongue, to the eyes, to the ears, as well as to the hands. And specifically now this issue, the techno issue and screen time. But one of the other things, inshallah, as we're like going through these stages, is one thing is those sins that we see them as sins because it's something quote unquote bad. But what about those things which we're supposed to be doing that we are not doing? And this is where the next category that we really want to try to put a lot of effort and thought into is inculcating the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our lives. To see any sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam as insignificant in and of itself is considered to be an itham. It is a sin, because it means now that that there was something or some aspect of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was insignificant. It's not important. Every aspect of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every sunnah is important. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah and other shuyukh, they go into some detail trying to explain outside of that knowledge and understanding which is acquired through practical application. They try to explain that there is a direct correlation between inculcating the sunnah and the impact and the effect that it has on the individual spiritually and even physically. So any sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no matter what category. So there are those that are, of course, which are emphasized and without any shadow of a doubt, those are the things that we should most definitely give a priority to and putting them into practice. Then there's probably let's mention the fard first. Not to be negative. And don't take it as negative. I was doing some research one time. It was last year. I was doing some research last year, and came across some staggering statistics. One of those is that, if I remember correctly, it's roughly about 24%. So 24% of Muslims who are fasting during the month of Ramadan, they don't pray, they don't make salah. So they'll fast during the month of Ramadan, but they don't make salah. So before we even get into sunnah, we have to talk about what is farad. And when we're talking about staying away from committing sins and committing major sins also include the omission of the fara'id. So when something is made an obligation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are not fulfilling those obligations, again, like we were talking about last night, we do have this bar, and this here is the bare minimum. So avoiding that which is haram, and only engaging in that which is halal, but also part of that is fulfilling the obligations. The obligations that we have upon ourselves, the obligations that we have to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the obligations that we have to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even with, before we can talk about anything else, we have to give emphasis to what is fard. And salah, we could, mashallah, we could spend the whole month of every Khatira or even tafsir, we could go into the importance of salah or the impact of the salah. And there's a reason for that. And the difficulties that we're facing right now, as we know that all the talk about sabr and being patient, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always puts these two together, sabr and salah. So anytime that we're facing any difficulty or we are in any situation or even the expression of gratitude, that is primarily done through the form of salah. And again, there is a direct relationship between what is taking place in the physical world, also spiritually within ourselves. There is a direct correlation to our salah and how we're performing that salah, or if we are performing that salah. Um, because we have in the ummah, we know this is, we casually, I don't want to say we joke about it, but we know about it and we mention it, that there's Eid Muslims. We know that there are Muslims that we're only going to see during Eid. And sometimes we'll have that individual stand up and say, those of you who have not prayed your Fajr Salat, Fajr is Farud and Salat al-Eid is Wajib. So you should get up now and pray your Fajr Salat before praying your Eid Salat. We know that there are, Muslims that they will go to dawats and everything, and mashallah, and they won't pray, and then they'll come to the masjid because it's important for them that they catch Salat al-Tarawih, which is a sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's still falling into that category of nafil as opposed to the fard of Salat al-Isha. So the first things first is, yes, we have to make sure that before we talk about sunnah, before we talk about any of the nawafil, that we give the farad its due importance, and we make sure that we are fulfilling these obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because otherwise, basically, it's like we are, we're pushing buttons on the machine, so to speak, but there's no power to it, right? And we're wondering why, it's like the car, I'm pressing the gas pedal, but it's not going anywhere, or I'm pushing this button, that button. How come it won't start? What's going on? Like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, but there's no fuel in it. And the obligations that are upon us, they are not for the benefit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iyadhu billahi min dhalik. It is for our own personal benefit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made these things an obligation upon us because we are the ones who are in need. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed certain benefits inside of these a'mal and inside of these obligations, which are going to help us to achieve our ultimate goal and objective, which is our najat. It is our salvation. We don't want to go to the hellfire. That is our, yani, on the basis of levels. What is it that this life and this dunya is about? What do we hope to achieve? And that very, again, that very bare minimum level is, I don't want to have to go to the hellfire. I don't want the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be upon me when I die. And now the punishment comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the revenge and retaliation comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I have not at least met this bare minimum requirement according to the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we must make sure that we fulfill these obligations, and by fulfilling these obligations, only then can we even think about moving to and talking about and engaging in the conversation regarding sunnah and nawafil. Otherwise, everything is again, the cart is in front of the horse, so to speak. So we've got everything upside down, inside out, backwards, however you want to put it. But the point is that that issue of self-sabotage and self-destruction comes into play, and it becomes a trick of shaitan, where the individual is exerting themselves in something which is not an obligation, and those obligations that are upon them, that they are not giving them their due import. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to first and foremost recognize those obligations, fulfill those obligations, and then and only then can we move on and talk about sunnah. Now, the emphasized sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those are of course what we want to strive and make efforts to inculcate in our daily routines in our day-to-day life. Remembering that the whole point of this Ramadan is not just these 29 or 30 days, that I'm going to engage in these a'mal for these 29 or 30 days. The whole point and the purpose is, again, you go back to the hadith of Aisha, Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, and she narrates from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the question was posed that which amal يعني أي أعمال is أحب إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى. Which أعمال, which action is the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إن أحب أحب الأعمال إلى الله أدوامها وإن قل أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. So the undoubtedly, certainly, the most beloved action or deed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that which is done with consistency. This istiqamah is now going to come into play, this consistency. وَإِن قَلْ, even though it may be um, considered to be something small, but it is that istiqamah, it is that dawam, or dima, that yani, that consistency, which is going to now give it its weight. So one thing is to during the month of Ramadan, I'm going to exert myself and I'm going to exhaust myself, and I'm doing all of these extra a'mal, alhamdulillah. But then once Ramadan ends, sometimes like not even before Ramadan ends, it's like the 27th. Once the 27th night comes, there's unfortunately, the general habit is that this is when all the da'wats and du'as and everything are taking place, and this is going to be Laylatul Qadr without any shadow of a doubt whatsoever, regardless what anybody says. And then on the 28th night, the 29th night, and then potentially the 30th night, everything is just kind of like people have disappeared from the masajid. The attendance for Salatul Taraweeh is diminished greatly. Everybody is now their minds and their focus is now shift towards Eid, and it's like they're, even though Ramadan is it's still Ramadan, it's still the month of Ramadan, but it's like their hearts have already left the month. Their fikr, their worry, their concern, their himma has already left the month of Ramadan. That determination has already left the month of Ramadan, and now they're already outside of Ramadan, and now they're engaging in it's all about the shopping and the food and the parties and the preparation for the da'wats and so on and so forth. And that is a sign that something went horribly wrong. Something has gone catastrophically wrong, and we have now missed the point of Ramadan. So we want to make sure that our focus in this month of Ramadan is the inculcation and the development of these positive habits and this positive atmosphere inside of our homes and inside of ourselves and within our families, to where now when Shawwal comes and the month of Ramadan is over, we are still maintaining these habits, these nawafil, maybe not to the same degree, because again, mashallah, there's this barakah and this rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Ramadan, where Allah ta'ala makes the nawafil easier, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is facilitating things for us, and Allah ta'ala is increasing us in the reward for those things. But there should be if you want to call it a residual effect or impact, that after Ramadan ends, that there should be traces of this still. So those, for instance, on a minimal level, again, that if we weren't making salat before Ramadan, and now we started making our fard salat during Ramadan, when Ramadan ends, we maintain the fara'id and those sunnahs which are emphasized, and maybe we weren't practicing them before Ramadan, and now alhamdulillah we've made those efforts to adopt those sunnah in our lives. After Ramadan ends, after Eid, we maintain those sunnah as well. So the idea here is to take whatever we're building during Ramadan, and there should still be some portion of it that remains after Ramadan that we are now going to maintain, and we're going to make part of our we want to embody it. Like you want to become it, and it become a part of you. And this is where we truly see the benefit of Ramadan. Sometimes it's thought that the benefits of Ramadan are what's seen during Ramadan. Yes, but the real benefit, of course, is that you're going to see from the following 11 months until the next Ramadan, and that's what leads to this practice of development, where each Ramadan there is this progression and there is this growth and there's this maturation and refinement in the heart and the mind and the life of each individual Muslim. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make that easy for us in terms of adopting the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The other thing is, of course, daily recitation, setting goals, as we were talking about last night, setting goals for recitation. We mentioned the ayat of Quran, so whatever is easy for you, but set a goal. I'm going to recite this much Quran every day. And whatever, if you go over and above that, and alhamdulillah, mashallah, but set a bare minimum. I am not going to recite less than this during the month of Ramadan. Every day, I'm going to recite at least this. And there may be a portion after that now where, because there's a recitation of Quran, there's a memorization of the Quran, there's the tafsir of the Quran. For some people, it may be if they have access to a qari or somebody who is skilled with the skilled in the excuse me in tajweed itself, then they can take benefit and even improve their makharij of the letters and the tajweed and pronunciation of the Quran itself. But the point is this development of this relationship with the Quran and engaging with the Quran. And of course, all this other stuff, ultimately, what we're talking about is taking the Quran and putting it into practice. That is the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. His life was take the Quran, put it into practice. So, what is the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? It is how you implement the Quran. He was like the walking Quran, and hence he is the example for us in everything in all things that we do, because his life is in accordance with the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is in accordance with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from each and every one of us as the ummatis of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also with that, we have the memorizing the du'as of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as the adhkar and engaging in the dhikr of Allah. Subhanallah wa alhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wa la akbar wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. We have istighfar, astaghfirullah al-azim. الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. We have salawat ala nabi, and we have a wealth. So there's these forms of adhkar. There's so many different forms of them. There's different ways of doing istighfar and making tawbah. There's different ways of sending salawat upon Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's different ways of engaging in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, remaining in the state of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this month of Ramadan. And just real quick, Salatul Taraweeh. Is it reasonable to expect or think that everybody's going to make 20 rakats in their home? That doesn't happen. That didn't happen last year or the year before that, for a variety of reasons. Some people, again, they're struggling with the fard, and for them to now, at the level that they're at, their focus was on, I'm going to start making my fard salat, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha on time. Maybe they had 4 out of the 5. Maybe Fajr was missing, or whatever the case, or maybe they had Fajr, but maybe because of work or their employment situation, Dhuhr was missing. So they're focusing on now. I'm trying to make sure that I fulfill the Salawatul Maktuba. I'm trying to fulfill those within their proper time slots and make sure that I get some istiqamah in this. And I'm intending to maintain that after the month of Ramadan. For some, they're doing the farad, but the sunnah, which are muakkada, those 12 rakats which are dispersed throughout the day, the 2 before Fajr, 4 before Dhuhr, 2 after Dhuhr, 2 after Maghrib, 2 after Isha. Then also, of course, in addition to that, we have Salatul Witr, which is wajib. So, yani, depending on where the individual is at, he or she is going to now make, again, set a bar, saying that, okay, what is the next step? Wherever I'm at, I need to make the next step. For some people, mashallah, for them, yes, it's very, not just reasonable, but it's a fair expectation that they have upon themselves that they are going to perform these 20 rakats of nafil. Yes, they may not be able to finish the Quran because they're not, hufaz, they're not a hafiz of Quran. They may be reciting juz amma every night. They may not even know. They may only know half a juz, or they may know different parts of the Quran. They may know Surah Al-Mulk or Yasin or Alif Lam Mim Sajda, Ar-Rahman, Al-Waqiyah, whatever it is that they have memorized, whatever is easy for them to recite in the Quran, that's what they will recite in those 20 rakats. And just as a quick reminder, I know we're taking a little bit of time here, but there's a hadith that comes in Bukhari Sharif, And what happened was is that there was a Sahabi, and he was made the Emir of a Jamaat, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent him out for a specific reason. And it is the common practice that whoever is the Emir, whoever is put in charge, this is the person who is also the Imam. So as he's leading the Salah, he kept reciting in every rakat of the Farad Salah, as he's leading the Jamaat, he kept reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. And he did this the whole time they were gone. So they started complaining. And when they got back to Medina, they brought this complaint to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that, this is what our Amir did, that this is what he did. Every rakat, he's reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas, and that's the only thing he recited. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he didn't say anything to them. He called the Amir of that Jamaat. He said, he asked him to come here. And he asked him, okay, this is what they're saying. And he said, yes, that's what happened. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked him, said, why did you recite this surah and every rak'ah? And he said, because I love this surah. And at this, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left it be. There's nothing wrong with it. He had in his heart, there was an inclination, and he had a love for this surah, and because of this surah, he is reciting it consistently all the time, and it was fine. The same thing with even with new Muslims. The first thing that you will usually teach is after Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Ikhlas. So even now, when you're talking about that's farad, that's farad salah. So even now, when you're talking about nafil, even if you perform those 20 rakats and in every rakat you're reciting Qul Huwallahu Ahad, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiply your reward. The thing about it is that we have to remember, it's not about the actual number itself. It's your level of effort, it's your sacrifice, it's your intention. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. It is what you are investing in that amal itself. So for some individuals who are very pious, they are already used to getting up for tahajjud. They have this habit, they have this pattern in their life, and they've had it for years. So they are actually going to add on those 20 rakats onto what they would normally do. So for them, yes, they may be even performing, 30 or between 30 and 40 rakats every night during the month of Ramadan. But that's that level that they are at. There are some that are used to finishing the Quran every 3 days. Some are used to finishing it in their tahajjud once every week, once every month. For those individuals, they are now, again, they're going to step up their game and they're going to increase their efforts and their sacrifice. So it's not a matter of like, this is the set pattern, everybody must do this. No, it's based on where are you? Where are you in your relationship with the Quran? Where are you in terms of your consistency in your ibadah, your farad and the sunnah, which is muakkada, which is emphasized, and then like after that, getting into the nawafil. So it is an independent how much you're going to do and what you're going to do. It is going to be gauged and it is going to be judged based on the individual situation. So there is no blanket generalization. The only generalization that we're going to make here is make effort, make some sacrifice, exert yourself. It is Ramadan. Think about change. Think about improving yourself, getting closer to Allah, getting the benefits from this Ramadan, seeing those benefits and maintaining this level of this effort and sacrifice even after Ramadan is over. These are the things that we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on the intention and the sincerity which is in it. And alhamdulillah, that is even a little bit easier because now that we are within the confines of our own home, there's nobody to see us. You don't even, inshallah, you don't even have to be as cautious, if it can be said that way, as cautious as you would when you are in public, because that privacy that you have inside of your own home is going to help to cultivate that sincerity. I don't have any, there's no other benefit. I'm up here in the middle of the night and I'm tired and I'm engaging in this ibadah. Ya Allah, it's only for you. There is no other benefit. Nobody's looking at me and saying that he or she is, look how pious they are and mashallah, and look at them and mashallah, muttaqeen, salihin. This is min ahl al-jannah. This is from one of the people of Jannah. There's nothing like that. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept each and every one of us. um, every last one of us, again, before Ramadan comes, set those goals. Where are you at in your Islam? What are you meeting that bare minimum? Are you meeting that bar? These obligations? Are we fulfilling the obligations of the what is farad, staying away from what is haram, fulfilling the rights of everyone and anyone, fulfilling the rights of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala? Where am I at? And then based on that, now what is the next? What is a reasonable next step for me? And this is where the shuyukh and the ulama, where they come in. That if you are not really sure about where you are at, then ask those who know, seek advice, get some recommendations from them. Say, look, this is what my situation is. What would be good for me to do? I don't want to underdo it and not get the full benefit of this month of Ramadan. I don't want to overdo it and then end up crashing. And I do great for like 3 days, 4 days, maybe the first week, and then all of a sudden, like the bottom falls out of it, and now I don't end up doing anything for the remainder of the 3 weeks and some change. So, what is reasonable for me to do based on the specifics of my situation, that I'm going to be able to now progressively get this benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this month of Ramadan, and even after this month of Ramadan during the remaining 11 months until the next Ramadan, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a long enough life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use our efforts as a means of expiation and elevation of our status fi dunya wa fil akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us of our shortcomings and our deficiencies. May Allah ta'ala bring ease and comfort to all those who are suffering for whatever reason. There were those who were suffering before the current health crisis, and now that suffering has been magnified. But nothing is for no reason. There are no coincidences. There are no accidents. Everything is according to the qudra of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And for the believer, it is always to our benefit. We ask Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to keep our hearts and our minds focused on those benefits that come from Him. That Allah Subhanahu wa Taala give us the tawfiq to become fully engaged in His shukr and sabr. And may Allah Subhanahu wa Taala protect, guide our families, our finances, our health and safety. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us during this month of Ramadan to get these full benefits from His rahmah and His fadl. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك نستغيث. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.